It was just an excuse to get you alone. My stepfather locked the motel door and pocketed the key. I was about to become another victim until police burst through the door at the exact second. Hello, my dear viewers. Hello, my beloved ones. It's so good to have you here with me today. Go ahead and settle in, grab yourself a cup of coffee, because this grandma has a story to tell that will touch your hearts. My name is Amanda Sherman. I'm 78 years young, and today I live here in my beloved Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I was born right here in this good land, and I've always lived here. This is where my heart belongs. You know? This is where I feel at peace. You must be wondering what this old grandma does with her life, right? Well, look, I have a passion I discovered in my golden years that changed my life. I raise birds. That's right, my loves. I have a huge aviary in my backyard with canaries, bluebirds, cardinals, robins. Oh, their singing early in the morning is the most beautiful thing in this world. It feels like all of nature wakes up singing with me. I discovered this love for birds in a funny way, see? About 15 years ago, an escaped canary flew through my kitchen window. The little thing was weak, all scared. I took care of it, gave it birdseed, fresh water, and when I saw it had recovered, I went to release it. But you know what happened? It didn't want to leave. It stayed there in the yard, singing every day at my window. So I thought, well, if it wants to stay, I'll make a nice place for it. I bought a big cage, then another, then built the aviary. And today, I have more than 20 little birds, each one with their name, their personality. Charlie, a yellow canary, is the most talkative. Lola, a female cardinal, is all sassy, only sings when she wants to. I wake up every day at 5:30 in the morning to take care of them, change their water, give them fresh food, clean the cages. It's my therapy, my joy. Oh, and before I continue my story, I need to make a special request to those of you watching. If you can, click that red button down there to subscribe to Grandparents' Tales. Turn on the notification bell too, because that way you won't miss any of this grandma's stories. And leave a thumbs up if you're enjoying it so far, okay? And tell me here in the comments, from which little town in America are you watching me? And what time of day did you find this video from Grandma Amanda? Early morning, at lunchtime, or already in the evening, having a cup of coffee? I read every comment you leave, and I get so emotional knowing where you're from and when you take time out of your day to listen to this old lady's stories. Tell me, will you, my love? Let's create a chain of affection from coast to coast of this great country. Now, my dears, I need to tell you a story I've been carrying for almost 60 years. A story of betrayal, of fear, and of a miracle that happened at the worst moment of my life. But for you to understand everything properly, I need to go back to the beginning, to when I was still a girl with braids, running barefoot through the dirt roads of Cedar Rapids. You know, my dears, when I close my eyes and think about my childhood, the first thing that comes to my mind is the smell of fresh bread coming out of my mother's wood-fired oven. My mother's name was Olivia Sherman, and she was a strong woman, one of those who woke up before sunrise and only stopped when the moon was already high in the sky. Her hair was dark brown, always tied in a tight bun, and she had calloused hands from so much work, but they gave the warmest caresses in the world when she ran them across my forehead before I went to sleep. My father was Arthur Sherman. Oh, my father. He was a tall man, with broad shoulders, with that calm and firm manner that only men from the old days had. He worked as a blacksmith here in Cedar Rapids, had a tiny workshop on Commerce Street, near the Central Square. I loved going there to watch him work. The sound of the anvil, the sparks that jumped when he hammered the hot iron, the smell of metal and smoke. My father made everything. Horseshoes for the carriage horses, window grills, gates, tools. His hands were huge and full of burn scars, but when he picked me up, I felt like the safest girl in the whole world. We lived in a simple wooden house, painted light blue, over by the Oakdale neighborhood. The house had 3 little rooms, my parents' bedroom, the little room I shared with my 2 younger sisters, Helen and Susan, and the living room that was also the kitchen and everything else. The floor was wide planks that creaked when you stepped on them, and it had those cracks that let the cold north wind in during winter. But my mother kept everything clean, smelling of lye soap and lavender. In the backyard, which was quite large, there was the chicken coop, the vegetable garden, 3 apple trees, and a plum tree. The outhouse was way in the back, far from the house, that little wooden shack with a crescent moon on the door. At night, when I needed to go there, I was scared to death and called my sister Helen to go with me. Our routine was like this. I'd wake up early before 6. My mother was already up making coffee on the wood stove. It was coffee with milk and homemade bread, sometimes with butter and sugar on top. Then I'd go to school, which was about 8 blocks from home, Cedar Rapids Elementary. I loved studying. I was a good student, got good grades in English and math. The teacher, Mrs. Evelyn, always said I had a good head for studying. I'd come home at lunchtime. My mother made simple but delicious food: rice, black beans, boiled potatoes, sometimes a piece of pot roast or homemade sausage. On Fridays, it was chicken stew with mashed potatoes. My sisters and I would fight over who got to eat the drumstick. In the afternoon, after school, I had to help with housework. I'd fetch water from the well. We didn't have running water. It was 4 full buckets I carried, 2 at a time, with a broomstick on my shoulders. It hurt, but I was strong. I also helped Mother hang clothes on the line, feed the chickens, weed the garden. But when there was time left over, then yes, I was a real child. My favorite games were in the street with the neighborhood kids. We played softball, jumped rope, played hide and seek between the houses. There was a girl, Yvonne, who was my best friend. We made up such stories. We'd make a little house under the mulberry tree with pebbles pretending they were little foods. Leaves were the plates. I played with dolls. My doll was made of cloth, made by my mother, with button eyes and black yarn hair. I called her Lily. In the summer, when it was very hot, we'd go swimming in the creek that ran near the neighborhood, Oak Creek. The water was clear and cold, and we'd spend hours there, jumping, swimming, catching tadpoles. Money was always tight at home. My father earned little from the workshop, and my mother did some sewing on the side, mending neighbors' clothes, making little dresses for children. But we never went hungry. There was always food on the table, clean clothes on our bodies, shoes on our feet, even if they were patched. My father was honest, hard-working. He didn't drink, didn't gamble, didn't hang out with bad company. Every penny he earned came straight home. And you know what I remember most fondly? Even with everything so tight, my father always found a way to give me a coin on Sunday, to buy a popsicle or some candy at Mr. Theodore's corner store. Cedar Rapids back then, the 1950s, was very different from today. The downtown streets were cobblestone, but where we lived it was still all dirt roads. There were more horses and wagons than cars. Commerce was small, everyone knew everyone. We lived a lot from agriculture, mainly corn, soybeans, wheat. Many families were descendants of Germans, like mine, and Italians too. There were lots of church festivals, processions, fairs. I remember the 4th of July celebrations with fireworks, barbecue, corn on the cob, square dancing. My father played the harmonica and sometimes played at these parties. I was so proud. But you know, my dears, even with all that happy childhood, I already felt some strange things. It wasn't anything serious yet, but I noticed that my mother sometimes got very nervous, very worried about money. She'd argue with my father, saying he needed to charge more for his work, that we couldn't be poor our whole lives. My father always responded calmly, saying we had enough that God would provide. But my mother was afraid of going without, afraid of having nothing. This fear of hers, I would discover years later, was what opened the door for evil to enter our lives. When I turned 12, I got my first party dress. It was light blue, with little white flowers embroidered on the hem. My mother made it with scraps she'd collected for months. I felt like the most beautiful girl in the world that day. I went to the school's summer fair, danced, ate corn cake. My father took a picture of me. One of the few we had, because photos were expensive. In that photo, I'm smiling, with long braids, barefoot, holding a paper balloon. I still have that photo saved to this day. It's the last photo of my happy childhood. Because soon after, things started to change in a way I could never have imagined. My dears, what I'm going to tell you now still hurts my heart, even after so many years. It was on March 14th, 1966. I had just turned 19. It was an ordinary Monday, one of those when you wake up without imagining that your entire life will change before the sun sets. My father had left early for the workshop, as always. I remember he kissed my forehead before leaving and said, "My daughter, tonight we'll talk about that young man who's been coming around. Walter, right? I want to know his intentions." I turned red as a beet, because it was true, there was a young man courting me. Walter was the son of the sawmill owner, a hard-working young man from a good family. My father left smiling, shaking his head, happy to see his daughter grown up. At 2 p.m, Mrs. Catherine, our neighbor, came running to our house. Her face was white, her eyes wide. "Olivia, Olivia, come quick! It's Arthur!" My mother dropped the iron and ran after her. My sisters and I stood at the door, not understanding anything. 5 minutes later, we heard the scream. A scream I'll never forget. It was my mother, screaming my father's name, in a desperation that seemed to tear the sky. My father had suffered a stroke. He was in the workshop, working on an iron gate, when suddenly he fell to the floor. His apprentice, Gerald, saw everything. He said my father put his hand to his head, complained of a very severe pain, and the next second he collapsed. When my mother got there, he was already gone, his eyes open, staring at nothing. He was only 48 years old. The wake was at our house. Back then, that's how it was. They placed the coffin in the living room, opened the windows, hung a black cloth on the door. All the neighbor women came to help, bringing food, coffee, praying the rosary. I sat on a wooden bench near the coffin, looking at my father's face. He looked like he was sleeping. I wanted to shake him and scream, "Wake up, Dad! Wake up! We need you!" But he was never going to wake up again. My sisters cried, clinging to my mother. My mother looked like a ghost. She didn't cry anymore, just stood there, staring, with red eyes, saying nothing. We buried my father the next day at Cedar Rapids Cemetery. Father Joseph said the Mass. A lot of people from town went, because my father was very well liked. Walter was there too, from afar, respectful. When they threw the first shovel of dirt on the coffin, I felt my heart shatter. My father, my protector, my hero, was leaving forever. The following days were terrible. My mother went into deep depression. She barely ate, barely spoke. She'd sit in the rocking chair, staring at the wall. I, as the oldest daughter, had to take over everything. Take care of my sisters, make food, clean the house, wash clothes. But the worst wasn't the work. The worst was the money. Or rather, the lack of it. My father's workshop closed. No one in the family knew how to work with iron. The property owner asked for the space back. My mother had no profession, only knew how to sew odd jobs. I worked in a fabric shop downtown, earning a pittance. My sisters were still too young. Helen was 16 and Susan only 14. In less than 2 months, we owed rent, owed at the grocery store, eating only the basics. My mother repeated every day like a litany. "We're going to be on the street, Amanda. We're going to starve. Your father left us helpless." That's when he appeared, Charles Durant. It was a Sunday in May, I remember well, because Mass had just ended at 11. We were walking home when a black car, shiny, stopped beside us. A car like that was rare in Cedar Rapids back then. The window rolled down, and a man appeared. He was handsome, about 40-something years old, black hair slicked back with brilliantine thin mustache, expensive clothes, gray dress pants, white shirt, tie, polished shoes. He smiled at my mother and said, "Mrs. Olivia." Don't you remember me? I'm Charles Durant. I went to school with Arthur when we were boys. I heard about his death. My condolences." My mother was a bit embarrassed, tried to thank him. Charles continued, "Look, I know it must be difficult for you and the girls. If you need any help, anything at all, you can count on me. I have a business here in town. I've done well for myself. Childhood friendship is sacred." And he handed a card to my mother. Then he gave a wink, started the car, and drove away. I felt a chill. I don't know how to explain it, but something about that man frightened me. The way he looked at my mother, and the way he looked at me. It was a quick look, but I saw it. A look that ran over my entire body, from head to toe, as if I were merchandise in a store window. But my mother didn't notice anything. She kept looking at the card. Charles Durant, import and export, with eyes shining with hope. A week later, my mother went to see him. She came home with an envelope of money. He lent it, Amanda. No interest, no rush to pay back. He said it's in memory of your father. I asked if she was sure, if she knew this man well. "Oh, girl, don't be suspicious. God sent an angel to help us in our time of need. Charles is a good man, has money, is generous. He said if I need anything else, just ask." And she asked. The next month, she asked for more money. Charles showed up at our house in a dark suit, expensive cologne, bringing not just money but also a basket of fine fruits, imported chocolates. He sat in our living room, talked with my mother, asked how things were going. My mother cried, told him about the difficulties, the fear of being on the street. Charles held her hand and said, "You won't go through this alone, Olivia. You can count on me." He started showing up every week, always with gifts, always with money, always with that smile and that soft voice. My mother grew attached to him. She started fixing her hair before he arrived, putting on a little lipstick, making special dessert. I saw all of that, and a stone grew in my stomach. Charles was kind to her, but with me he was different. When my mother wasn't looking, he stared at me, a long, heavy look. Sometimes he'd pass close to me and brush his hand on my arm, my shoulder. "This daughter of yours is becoming a pretty young lady, Olivia," he said one day. My mother smiled, all foolish. I felt disgusted. In August of that year, Charles asked my mother to date him. She accepted immediately. I tried to talk to her, said it was too fast, that we barely knew the man, that my father had only died 5 months ago. My mother looked at me angrily. "You don't understand anything, Amanda. You're young. You don't know what it's like to have responsibility. I have 3 daughters to raise without a penny in my pocket. Charles is my salvation, our salvation. He's going to take care of us." I couldn't explain to her what I felt. I had no proof, nothing concrete. It was just that bad feeling, those looks from him, that way he had of approaching me when she didn't see. I talked to Walter, my boyfriend. He didn't like it either. "This man appeared out of nowhere, Amanda. Where does all that money come from? Nobody really knows him. Your father went to school with him? Maybe, but how many years ago? 30? And he never showed up before?" But my mother wouldn't listen. In November they got married. A simple wedding at City Hall, no party. Charles rented a bigger house for us, on a better street. A brick house with 3 bedrooms, bathroom inside the house, running water. It seemed like a palace compared to our old little house. My mother was over the moon. My sisters were also happy, impressed with their rich stepfather. I pretended I was happy, but inside, I was terrified. Charles took command of the house. He paid for everything: rent, food, electricity, water. He gave my mother money to buy new clothes, furniture, bought a refrigerator, a brand new stove, put my sisters in a private school. My mother kept saying, "You see, I was right. Charles is a wonderful man. Look how he takes care of us." But I saw something else. I saw how he looked at me, how he made excuses to be alone with me, how he started giving me gifts, a lipstick, perfume, a silk scarf. "It's our secret," he'd say, winking. No need to tell your mother. She might get jealous that you're getting presents and your sisters aren't. I started leaving the house more. I stayed longer at the shop where I worked. I spent afternoons at Yvonne's house, my childhood friend. I stayed with Walter until later. Anything to not be near Charles. But the more I pulled away, the more my mother fought with me. You're being rude to Charles, Amanda. He does everything for us, and you don't even thank him. You're ungrateful. She didn't understand. She didn't want to understand, because accepting the truth would mean accepting that she had brought a wolf into the house. And that wolf was just waiting for the right time to attack. The following months were the hardest of my life, my dears. Living in the same house as Charles was like living in a cage with an angry cat, waiting for the moment he'd pounce. I slept in the room with my sisters, but even so I didn't feel safe. At night, I'd hear his footsteps in the hallway. Sometimes he'd stop in front of our door. He'd stand there, still, for minutes that seemed like hours. I'd hold my breath, pull the sheet up to my chin, pray quietly for him to leave. And he would. But I knew it was only a matter of time. During the day, the situation was even worse. Charles worked from home, had an office in one of the rooms. He'd stay there making calls, receiving strange men who came and went without saying much. My mother couldn't enter his office. "It's man's business, Olivia. You don't understand these things," he'd say, and my mother accepted, all submissive. But me? I was called in there. "Amanda, come here for a minute. I need you to organize some papers for me." When I entered, he'd close the door. My heart would race. He'd sit in the leather chair, looking me up and down, with that smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're getting more beautiful every day, you know." He'd stand up, come close to me. I'd shrink back. "Why are you like this, so tense? I'm not going to bite you." And he'd laugh, a low laugh that gave me chills. He'd come too close. He'd brush his hand on my arm, my shoulder, my hair. "You smell nice. Is that the perfume I gave you?" I'd shake my head, try to leave. "Calm down, miss. I'm not done talking to you yet." He started giving me money. $100 bills hidden in the palm of his hand. "Buy yourself something nice, a new outfit, but don't tell your mother, okay? It's a special gift." I didn't want to take it, but he insisted. Take it, don't be silly. You deserve it." And he'd stuff the money in my apron pocket, taking the opportunity to run his hand on my waist. I'd run out of that office, disgusted, scared, angry. I tried to tell my mother. I gathered courage one night when we were alone in the kitchen. "Mom, Charles, he keeps calling me to the office. He gets very close to me. Gives me money secretly. I don't like it, Mom. It scares me." Her reaction was worse than I imagined. She stopped washing dishes, looked at me with that face of contempt. "You're making things up, Amanda. Charles is a good man. He calls you to the office because you're the oldest, the most responsible. And if he gives you money, it's because he's generous. You should be thankful instead of talking bad about him." She threw the dish towel in the sink. "I know what you're doing, young lady. You're jealous. Jealous because I found a good man, because we're living well now. You wanted us to stay poor, suffering, going without." I was floored. I started crying. "That's not it, Mom. I'm just worried. He's not what you think." But she wouldn't listen. "Enough. I don't want to hear these slanders against Charles anymore. He saved us from poverty. You're acting like an ungrateful girl. And if you continue with this nonsense, I'm going to have to take measures." Measures. That word haunted me. What did she mean by that? That she was going to kick me out of the house? I had nowhere to go. I earned little at the shop, couldn't support myself alone. And that's when I had an idea, a desperate idea, but one that seemed like the only way out. Marry Walter. Walter and I had been dating seriously for over a year. He was a good young man, hard-working, respectful. He had talked a few times about marriage, but in a vague way, for the future. I arranged to meet him on a Sunday afternoon, on the park bench. I told him everything Charles did, everything I felt, the fear I had. Walter turned purple with anger. "That bastard! I'm going there and breaking his face." I held his arm. "No, no. That'll make everything worse. My mother doesn't believe me. She'll take his side. And I have no proof, Walter. He's never done anything in front of anyone. It's just him and me, and his word against mine." Walter took a deep breath, trying to calm down. Then he took my hands and said, "Marry me, Amanda. Marry me now. We'll rent a little house. I'll work. We'll manage. You don't need to stay in that hell." I looked into his eyes and saw sincerity. I saw protection. I saw the way out I so desperately needed. "Are you sure?" He nodded. "I am. I was going to ask you to marry me anyway. I was just waiting to save more money. But we can't wait. You need to get out of there." We got married in April 1967. I was 20, he was 23. It was a simple wedding at City Hall with half a dozen people. My mother went, but she had a sour face. Charles went too, in a suit, all smiling, congratulating me. When he hugged me to congratulate me, he whispered in my ear, quietly, so no one else could hear. "You can marry whoever you want, Amanda, but you'll still be mine." I felt a chill run down my entire spine. Walter rented a small house, 2 rooms, on the other side of town, far from my mother and Charles. I was happy, free, breathing fresh air for the first time in months. I'd wake up in the morning and wasn't afraid of finding Charles in the hallway. Wasn't afraid of being called to the office. Walter was affectionate, worked hard at the sawmill, came home tired but always with a smile for me. We were poor, lived tight, but we were happy. But Charles hadn't forgotten me. He'd show up at my house, without warning, always with an excuse. "Came to bring some fruit for Amanda, Walter. Your mother-in-law sent it." Walter didn't like it, was suspicious, but was polite, thanked him and closed the door in his face. I'd see Charles's black car pass slowly on our street several times. He was watching me, following me. Once I was coming back from the farmer's market, and he stopped the car beside me. "Get in here, Amanda. I'll give you a ride." I said no, that I was close to home. He insisted. I ran away. I talked to Walter about moving to another city, going far away, starting over. He thought seriously about it, but his whole family was in Cedar Rapids. His job was here. "That man can't control our lives, Amanda. We're not going to run from him forever. He'll get tired. He'll give up. Just don't stay alone on the street, okay? And if he approaches you, you scream, make a scene." The months went by. Charles kept showing up from time to time, but less. I started thinking he had really given up, that he had found someone else to torment. Walter and I were doing well. We had even talked about having children, making plans for the future. I now worked at a shoe factory, earned a little more. We were saving money to buy a little piece of land. But then, on a Tuesday afternoon in October 1967, I'll never forget that date, the phone rang. We had just gotten a phone in the house, those party lines they had back then. It was Charles. His voice was different, urgent, worried. "Amanda, it's Charles. Look, I didn't want to call you, but it's serious. It's about Walter." My heart froze. What about Walter? I was passing by the highway just now and saw his car pulling into the Starlight Motel. "Amanda, I didn't want to be the one to tell you this, but he wasn't alone." The world spun. Walter cheating on me? No, it couldn't be. But Charles was so convincing. "I'm here in front of the motel now. If you want to come see with your own eyes before he leaves, but you have to come quick. I don't know how long he'll be in there." I was blind with jealousy, pain, anger. I didn't think straight. I just thought, I need to see. I need to know if it's true. "I'm coming now," I said. "But how will I get in there?" Charles answered right away, "Leave it to me. I know the owner. I'll get the key. We'll go in and catch him red-handed." I hung up the phone, grabbed my purse, and ran out. I took the bus that went to the highway, got off in front of the Starlight Motel. It was a somewhat hidden place with separate cabins surrounded by trees. Charles's car was parked at the entrance. He was leaning on the hood, smoking a cigarette. When he saw me, he threw the cigarette on the ground and smiled. That smile I knew so well. "Come on," he said. "It's cabin number 7. I got the key from the maid, paid her good money. Let's catch him in the act." I was shaking, but I followed him. We walked to cabin 7. Charles put the key in the lock, opened the door slowly. I went in first. The room was empty. The bed was made, impeccable. There was no one there. No sign that anyone had used that room. I turned to Charles, confused. "There's no one here. You made a mistake. It must have been another similar car." But Charles no longer had that worried face. He was smiling, a cold, dangerous smile. He came in behind me and closed the door, locked it with the key. 2 turns. The sound of the lock was like a shot to my chest. "Walter's not here, Amanda," he said, pocketing the key in his jacket. "He's working at the sawmill as always. It was just an excuse to get you alone." The blood froze in my veins. I looked at the door, at the window, looking for an exit, but Charles was blocking the way. He took off his jacket slowly, calmly, and threw it on the chair. He loosened his tie. His smile faded and gave way to an expression I had never seen before. Cold. Calculating. Dangerous. "Did you think you'd escape me, Amanda?" He took a step in my direction. I took a step back. "Married that poor Walter thinking that would protect you from me?" Another step. I backed against the wall. There was nowhere else to go. I waited. I was patient. But my patience ran out. "Charles, for God's sake." My voice came out trembling, almost a whisper. "Don't do this. My mother is waiting for you at home." "And Walter will notice I left. He'll come looking for me." It was a lie. Walter was working, wasn't going home before 6, and he had no idea where I was. Charles laughed, a dry laugh, without humor. "Your mother? Oh, Amanda, your mother doesn't care about you. She cares about the comfort I give her, the nice clothes, the plentiful food, the good house. I can make her believe anything I want. I've already made her believe you're a jealous girl, ungrateful. And as for Walter..." He looked at his wristwatch very slowly. "He won't leave the sawmill for another 3 hours, and even if he comes looking for you, how's he going to know you're here?" Tears started rolling down my face. "Why are you doing this? What did I do to you?" My voice was getting thinner and thinner, more desperate. I felt my legs shaking so much I could barely stand. Charles came closer, so close I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the smell of cigarettes, and something else. A smell that made me nauseous, that made me want to vomit. "You didn't do anything, Amanda. That's exactly why. You're beautiful, young, innocent." He licked his lips while looking me up and down, as if I were a piece of meat in a butcher's window. "From the first day I saw you, coming out of that church with your little braids and your little girl dress, I wanted you. I waited for you to grow up, waited for you to become a young lady, and I always get what I want, always." He raised his hand and ran his fingers over my face, down to my neck. I turned my head away forcefully, disgusted, feeling my skin crawl where he had touched. "Don't touch me. I hate you. I always knew you were a monster." He grabbed my chin hard, his fingers squeezing so much I felt pain in my jaw. He forced me to look at him. His eyes were dark, empty, without any humanity. "You're going to learn to respect me, young lady. In here, I'm in charge. No one's going to hear you scream. The walls of this motel are soundproof. I had them made that way myself. I know because this place is mine." My heart stopped. I felt as if the floor had disappeared from under my feet. "Yours?" The word came out in a thread of voice. Charles smiled, proud, puffed up with vanity. "That's right. The Starlight Motel is mine, one of my many businesses. Businesses your mother doesn't know about, that no one in town knows about. I'm not just a merchant from Cedar Rapids, Amanda. I have connections in Chicago, in New York, in Los Angeles. I deal with things you can't even imagine. And here, in this little room, no one's going to interrupt us. No one ever interrupts anything here. The horror of what he was saying hit me gradually. How many women had he brought to this place? How many had he... No, I couldn't think about that. I had to focus on getting out of there. I had to survive. He pushed me hard. I fell sitting on the bed, feeling the old springs of the mattress creaking under me. No, no, please. I started crying uncontrollably, sobbing, my whole body shaking. I beg you, Charles. I'm married. I love my husband. Please don't do this. I'll do anything but not this. I can give you money. I can... But I had nothing. I had no money. I had nothing of value. I only had my body, and that was exactly what he wanted. You're going to do what I tell you, when I tell you. He started unbuttoning his shirt, one button at a time, slowly, savoring my despair. His eyes were fixed on me like a predator looking at wounded prey. And you're going to learn to like it. They all learn. Something inside me broke. It wasn't just fear. It was rage, a rage I had never felt before. I jumped up and ran to the door. I grabbed the doorknob with both hands and shook it with all the strength I had. Help! Someone help me! Is anyone out there? For God's sake, get me out of here! I screamed with all the strength of my lungs, pounding the door with my fists, kicking, making as much noise as I could. Help! Help! Charles came from behind, quick as a snake, and pulled me by my hair so hard I felt some strands being ripped out. I already told you no one's going to hear you, you stubborn bitch! He dragged me back, and I scratched the floor with my nails, trying to hold on to something. I managed to grab the chair leg, but he kicked my hand, and I let go, screaming in pain. Never! Never! I turned and faced him, even knowing I was weaker. I struggled, kicked, scratched. I managed to land a slap on his face with all the strength I had. The mark of my fingers stayed red on his cheek. Charles was surprised for a second, his hand automatically going to his face. Then he became furious. His eyes filled with murderous rage. You slut! He grabbed me by the neck with one hand and threw me on the bed so hard my head hit the wall. I saw stars. Everything went blurry for a second. When my vision cleared, he was on top of me, holding both my wrists with just one hand, the other hand free. I kept screaming, begging, crying. My father will come for you from hell. My father is watching me now, and he won't let you. He won't let you do this to me. Your father's dead, you idiot, Charles screamed in my face, so close I felt his spit hitting my face. Your father died and rotted under the ground. There's no heaven, there's no hell, there's nothing. Your father's not coming back to save you. Now the one in charge of you is me. Understand? Me. He released one of my wrists to tear my blouse. I heard the fabric tearing, the buttons popping off and hitting the floor, the sound echoing in the small room. I used my free hand to scratch his face with my nails, with all the rage I had inside me. I left 3 deep red marks on his cheek, marks that bled. He screamed in pain and anger, and his free hand came flying in my direction. The slap was so hard my head turned to the side. I tasted blood in my mouth. My lip had split. Everything went dark for a moment. When I opened my eyes again, he was shaking me. Don't pass out. I want you to stay awake. I want you to feel everything. It was at that moment, at that exact moment when I thought God had abandoned me, that my father had abandoned me, that I was completely alone and everything was lost, that the miracle happened. Boom, boom, boom. A deafening crash shook the entire room. It wasn't knocking on the door. It was something much, much stronger. The sound of wood breaking, of metal twisting, of hinges being ripped from the wall. The door literally exploded inward, torn from the frame, and pieces of wood flew through the room as if a bomb had exploded. Window glass shattered from the impact. I felt glass shards falling on me. FBI, on the ground. Everyone on the ground now. Hands on your head. Men came running in. No, not running. They invaded the room like a tsunami, dressed in black uniforms, helmets with visors, thick bulletproof vests, holding huge rifles that looked like weapons of war. There were 5, 6, 7. I couldn't count right. Everything happened so fast it seemed in slow motion and fast forward at the same time. Charles froze on top of me. His face, which a second ago had been red with rage and desire, turned white as paper. His eyes widened with absolute shock and panic. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. 2 huge officers jumped on him like lions jumping on prey, yanked him off me with such force he flew to the other side of the room and threw him on the floor face down. I heard the air leaving his lungs when he hit the floor. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back now. Don't move or we shoot. One of the officers put his knee on Charles's back, the other twisted his arms behind him. I heard Charles groaning in pain. The sound of the handcuffs clicking was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard in my life. I curled up in the corner of the bed, pulling the remains of my torn blouse to try to cover myself, sobbing so hard I could barely breathe. My whole body shook uncontrollably. I was in shock, couldn't process what was happening. Was it real? Or had I died, and this was heaven? A female officer came running into the room, looked at the scene, Charles handcuffed on the floor, me in the corner of the bed with torn clothes and a bruised face, and understood everything. She took off her vest immediately and came running to me. "Calm down, miss. Calm down. Everything's okay now. You're safe. No one's going to hurt you anymore. I promise." She put the vest around me and hugged me. I collapsed on her shoulder, crying in a way I had never cried in my life. Crying with relief, with terror, with gratitude, everything mixed together. Outside the room, I heard chaos. The sound of more doors being broken down, one after another. Screams, squad car sirens, orders being shouted, men being arrested. It was a huge operation. "You're crazy! This is absurd! I didn't do anything! I'm going to sue all of you! You're going to lose your jobs! I know the governor! I know important people!" Charles was trying to talk, his voice coming out muffled because his face was crushed on the floor. One of the officers stepped on his back hard. "Shut up, Charles Durant. You're under arrest, and you're going to stay locked up for the rest of your miserable life." An older man entered the room without a vest, dressed in dress pants, white shirt and a loose blue tie around his neck. He had a badge hanging on a little chain. His eyes were tired but alert, his face marked by years of hard work. "Agent Morrison, FBI." He introduced himself to the officer who was consoling me. He looked at me, saw my torn clothes, my bleeding lip, my purple wrists where Charles had held me. Then he looked at Charles handcuffed on the floor and understood everything immediately. He crouched near Charles, grabbed him by the collar and lifted his head off the floor. "You were going to add rape to your criminal record, you bastard?" Agent Morrison had eyes full of disgust, repulsion. "You're already screwed up to your neck with trafficking stolen goods, money laundering, receiving stolen property, criminal association, corruption. And you thought you'd get away with this too? Thought you'd destroy another girl's life?" He released Charles, who fell face first on the floor again. The sound of his nose hitting made a wet sound, and I saw blood start to flow. "Today's your unlucky day, Charles Durant. Your empire is over, and you're going to rot in a cell." The officer, her name was embroidered on the uniform, Officer Sarah, helped me up. My legs were so wobbly I could barely stand. She held me steady. "Come with me, dear. Let's get you out of here. You need medical attention, and we need your statement. But that can wait. First, we'll take care of you." Her voice was firm but gentle. It was the voice of a woman who had seen these things before, who understood. I managed to speak with a broken voice, the words coming out choppy between sobs. But how? How did you know I was here? Who called you?" Agent Morrison turned to me. "We didn't know about you, miss. I'm very sorry, but we didn't know. We've been investigating Charles Durant for 8 months. He's the head of one of the biggest cargo theft rings in Iowa. They'd rob trucks on the road, bring the merchandise here, redistribute and sell it. This motel here was his operation center, disguised as a legitimate business. We had court-authorized wiretaps, surveillance, we monitored his movements. Today was the day of the operation to arrest him red-handed, receiving a shipment of smuggled cigarettes. We chose this time because we knew, from monitoring, that he'd be here at the motel. He paused, looked at me again, and his expression became softer. We had no idea what he was doing to you in here. But thank God we got here in time. 5 more minutes and... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Thank God. Thank my Father. I know, deep in my heart, that it was him. My Father was there from heaven, guiding those officers, making that operation happen at that exact minute, at that exact second. 5 more minutes, and it would have been too late. But it wasn't. My father couldn't protect me when he was alive. But that day, somehow I can't explain, he saved me. They took me to the FBI field office, which was on a street near downtown Cedar Rapids. It was a gray building, serious, full of people walking back and forth with papers in hand. They put me in a small room with a table, 2 chairs, and a barred window. Officer Sarah stayed with me the whole time. She brought water, brought a clean blouse for me to wear because mine was destroyed. She also brought cotton and alcohol to clean the cut on my lip. "You need to see a doctor," she said, with that firm but caring voice. "You need to have a forensic exam. It's important for the case." I nodded. I was still in shock, but gradually understanding that I had been saved, that I was alive, that Charles hadn't managed to do the worst. A medical examiner came to examine me. It was embarrassing, but she was very respectful. She confirmed that there had been no consummation, that the police had arrived in time. But she documented all the injuries, the bruises on my wrists, the cut lip, the scratches on my neck where he had squeezed me, the marks of his fingers on my arms. "You were very lucky," she said. Lucky. I'd call it a miracle. Then it was time for the statement. Agent Morrison sat across from me with a secretary next to him who typed everything I said. "Amanda, I know it's difficult, but I need you to tell me everything from the beginning. How did you meet Charles Durant? Had he bothered you before?" And I told everything. How he had appeared after my father's death, how he had won over my mother, how he looked at me, touched me, gave me gifts secretly. I told how I tried to alert my mother, but she didn't believe me. I told about the marriage, the stalking, today's phone call. I talked until I had no voice left. The agent wrote everything down, shaking his head. "This man is a predator, Amanda, a dangerous predator. You're not the first." We found in his office here at the motel photos of other women, young, all young. We're trying to identify and locate them. My stomach turned. Other women. How many had he destroyed? "And my mother?" I asked. Are you going to arrest her too?" The agent shook his head. "Your mother didn't know about his crimes. From what you've told me and from what we investigated, she was just another victim of his manipulation. He used money to control her, to buy her silence. But she wasn't involved in the crimes. We'll question her, of course, but as a witness, not as a suspect." I felt relief, but also enormous pain. My mother had chosen Charles over me, had chosen comfort, money, instead of believing her own daughter. Would she ask me for forgiveness now? Or would she continue blaming me? When we finished the statement, it was already night. Officer Sarah walked me to the door of the office. "Is there someone to pick you up?" she asked. I thought of Walter. My husband. He must be desperate, looking for me. "Can I call my husband?" She took me to a phone. I dialed the sawmill number where he worked. The owner answered. "Walter left a long time ago, miss. He ran out of here about 4 hours ago, said his wife had disappeared. My heart tightened. I called our house. It rang. No one answered. He must be looking for me on the streets, I told Officer Sarah. She nodded. I'll send a patrol car to take you home. And I'll have the patrols look for him and inform him you're okay. 20 minutes later, I was in front of my little house. The lights were on. The door opened before I even got out of the patrol car, and Walter came running out. His face was red, his eyes swollen from crying so much. Amanda! My God, Amanda! He grabbed me, hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. He was crying, sobbing on my shoulder. I thought I'd lost you. I looked everywhere. I went to your mother's house. I went to your friends' houses. I walked the whole town. Where were you? What happened? I cried too. I cried in his arms, feeling his smell, his warmth, his safety. Let's go inside. I need to tell you everything. We went in. Officer Sarah stayed at the door, respectful, giving privacy. I sat with Walter at our little kitchen table and told him everything. Charles's phone call, the trap, the motel, what he tried to do, and how the police had broken down the door. Walter turned white, then red, then purple. His hands trembled with rage. I'm going to kill him. I swear to God I'm going to kill that bastard. I held his hands. You don't need to. He's already arrested. He'll stay locked up for the rest of his life, the agent assured me. Walter hugged me again, crying. I should have protected you better. Should have killed him the first time he showed up at our house. Should have. It wasn't your fault, I said. It was his, only his. Officer Sarah knocked on the door. Amanda, there's one more thing. Your mother is at the office. She wants to talk to you. My heart froze. My mother. Would she finally believe me now? I went back to the office, this time with Walter by my side. My mother was sitting in a waiting room with my sisters. Helen and Susan ran to me as soon as they saw me, hugging me, crying. Amanda, we were so worried. We didn't know anything. My mother stayed seated, her face pale, her eyes red but dry. She had cried so much she had no more tears. I approached her. We looked at each other for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice hoarse. He fooled me, fooled everyone. The police told me everything. The crimes, the women, what he tried to do to you. A pause. You tried to warn me, and I didn't listen. I waited. I waited for her to say the 3 words I most needed to hear. Forgive me, daughter. But she didn't say it. Instead, she continued. I lost everything. The house, the money, it was all his. The police confiscated it. I'm going to have to go back to the old house if the owner still accepts us. She was lamenting the loss of comfort, not so much the almost destroyed daughter. I felt a cold anger rising. Mom, I almost was. He almost... I couldn't finish the sentence. She looked away. I know. Thank God the police arrived in time. It wasn't thanks to God, I said, my voice firm. It was coincidence. They were investigating him for other crimes. If it weren't for that, he would have succeeded. And it would have been your fault too, Mom, because you didn't want to believe me. She kept looking at me, and for a second, just 1 second, I saw guilt in her eyes. But then she hardened again. I did what I thought was best for the family. I didn't know he was a criminal. How was I supposed to know? Always making excuses, always putting the blame on anything but herself. You knew he was a disgusting man who harassed your daughter, I said. I told you, and you chose him. I turned my back on her. Come on, Helen. Come on, Susan. You're going to stay with me and Walter until things sort out. My mother can manage on her own, since she's so good at believing the wrong man. My sisters came with me. My mother stayed there, alone on the bench at the office. I didn't look back. The following months were about rebuilding. Charles was tried and convicted. He got 32 years in prison, 25 for the crimes of theft, receiving stolen property and money laundering, and another 7 for the attempt against me. His lawyer tried to argue that there had been no consummation, that it was just an attempt, but the judge was harsh. Attempt or not, the crime was extremely serious. And by the evidence presented, including photos of other victims, it's clear this man is a serial predator. I didn't go to the trial. I didn't want to see his face again. But Agent Morrison called me to give me the news. It's over, Amanda. He's going to die in prison. You can live your life in peace now. Peace. Would it be possible to have peace after all that? With time, yes. Slowly, very slowly, I healed. Walter was patient, affectionate. My sisters stayed living with us for 6 months until my mother managed to rent another small house. The relationship with my mother was never the same. We'd see each other sometimes at end-of-year parties, at birthdays, but always with that distance, that hurt that never quite healed. But I survived. I won. And when I look back, I know my father was with me that day. He didn't let evil win. He saved me, even from heaven. My dears, after everything I went through, you must be wondering, and did life go on, Grandma Amanda? Were you able to be happy? And I answer, yes, my loves. Yes, I was. Today, at 78 years old, I live here in my beloved Cedar Rapids, in the same city where I was born, where I suffered, but also where I was reborn. I live in a simple but comfortable little house in the Oak Ridge neighborhood with my husband Walter, who's 81 years old and continues to be the most patient and affectionate man I could have asked God for. We didn't get rich, no. Walter worked at the sawmill his whole life until he retired at 65. I worked at the shoe factory for another 20 years until 1987, when I finally stopped. We had 3 children, you know? 3 blessings God gave me. Arthur, I gave my father's name to him, was born in 1969, 2 years after that terrible day. When I held him in my arms for the first time, I cried with joy. It was a new life, a new beginning. Then came Claire in 1972, and finally Andrew in 1975. I raised all 3 with so much love, so much dedication. I never told them what happened to me, not when they were children, only when they became adults. When Arthur was already in his 20s, I sat down with them and told them. They needed to know where their mother came from, what she survived. They cried with me, they hugged me, and they understood why sometimes I was afraid to let them go out alone, why I was so protective. Today, I have 7 grandchildren. Arthur gave me 3, Lucas, Mariana, and Peter. Claire gave me 2 beautiful girls, Julia and Isabella, and Andrew, my youngest, gave me 2 wild little boys, Gabriel and Michael. They are my joy, my reason to wake up every day with a smile on my face. Every Sunday they come for lunch at my house. I make roast chicken with mashed potatoes, which has always been the family's favorite food. The house becomes a nice mess, full of children running, laughing, fighting over the last piece of cake. It's noise, it's chaos, but it's the noise I love most in this life. My Walter, poor thing, has problems with his knee, doesn't walk so well anymore. But every morning he goes out with me to the backyard to help take care of the birds. He sits on the little stool, passing me the little pots of birdseed fresh water, talking to the little birds. "Good morning, Charlie. Good morning, Lola," he says, and I laugh. Then we drink coffee together, sitting on the porch, watching the sun rise. It's these simple moments that are worth more than all the gold in the world. My sisters, Helen and Susan, live here in Cedar Rapids too. Helen married a mechanic and has a shop in downtown. Susan became a teacher, taught her whole life. Now she's retired. We see each other every week, have coffee together, reminisce about childhood times. We never talk about Charles anymore. That name was erased from our lives. My mother, Olivia, passed away in 1995 at 73 years old. It was lung cancer, fast, aggressive. In her last days, when she was in the hospital, I went to visit. She was very thin, her hair all white, her eyes sunken. She took my hand and said, for the first time in almost 30 years, Forgive me, Amanda. I was wrong. I was very wrong. I squeezed her hand and said, I forgive you, Mom. And I really forgave. Because holding on to resentment only hurts us. She died in peace, and I was at peace too. As for Charles, he died in prison in 2001. I found out because Agent Morrison, who retired from the FBI but remained a friend of our family, called me to let me know. It's over for good, Amanda. He had a heart attack and died. He won't torment anyone anymore. I didn't feel joy, nor sadness, just relief and gratitude for having survived him. Today my routine is simple and nice. I wake up at 5:30, take care of my little birds, make coffee for Walter. In the morning, I like to watch my shows on TV, especially those about recipes and crafts. In the afternoon, when the sun is less hot, I go to one of my friends' houses for coffee, or they come here. On Wednesdays, I go to church, to 3 o'clock Mass. On Saturdays, it's farmers' market day to buy fresh vegetables, and Sunday, as I already said, is the day for the whole family to get together. I look back at my 78 years of life, and I see so much. I saw pain. I saw fear. I saw despair. But I also saw love. I saw miracles. I saw new beginnings. I survived the worst moment a woman can go through and still managed to build a beautiful life. I had a marriage of almost 60 years with a good man. I raised 3 wonderful children. I have 7 grandchildren who are my joy. I have health, as much as possible for my age, right? I have my husband by my side. I have my sisters, my friends, and I have peace. Peace that I didn't think would be possible after everything. But God is good, my dears. God and my Father, who from heaven never stopped taking care of me. That door that exploded at the exact second was His work. I know it was, and I give thanks every day. Here on my porch with my birds singing, with the smell of coffee that Walter is making inside, with the photo of my grandchildren on the side table, I can say, it was worth fighting. It was worth surviving. Because life, my loves, life is much stronger than evil. My dears, my loves, if there's someone out there watching me who's going through a situation similar to mine, if there's someone who's not being believed by their own family, if there's someone being harassed, stalked, manipulated by a man who uses money and power to control everyone around, I want to look you in the eyes now and say, you're not crazy, you're not making it up, and you're not alone. I learned, in the worst way possible, that predators like Charles are masters at deceiving. They know exactly how to manipulate people, how to play the victim, how to turn the whole family against you. And you know what's most painful? It's when your own mother, the person who should protect you above all else, chooses to believe him instead of believing you. That hurts more than any physical wound. It hurts the soul. But I want to tell you something. Even when no one believes you, you need to believe in yourself. Your truth is your truth, even if the whole world says otherwise. I knew deep in my heart that Charles was dangerous. My instinct screamed, and I was right. Always trust your instinct. I learned that surviving isn't just continuing to breathe, it's choosing to truly live after the worst has passed. When that door exploded and the police came in, I didn't know if I'd be able to be happy again. I didn't know if I'd be able to trust again, love again, sleep in peace again. But I did. Slowly, with help, with love, I rebuilt my life, brick by brick. I learned that forgiving doesn't mean forgetting or saying everything was okay. It means letting go of the weight so you can walk lighter. I forgave my mother in the end, not for her, but for me. Because I deserved peace, and you deserve it too. I learned that miracles do exist. That door that exploded at the exact second wasn't coincidence. It was my Father from heaven guiding those officers. If you're in danger now, know that help exists. In every country, in every city, there are authorities who can protect you. There are organizations that believe you, seek help. Don't wait for the miracle to happen on its own. Run after your salvation. And if you know someone, a daughter, a niece, a friend, who's trying to tell you they're being threatened, harassed, abused, for God's sake, believe them. Believe before it's too late. Don't make the mistake my mother made. Don't choose comfort over your family's safety. Because there are things we can't undo later. My dears, my loves who have accompanied me this far, who listened to this difficult story to the end, I want to make a special request of you. If this story touched your heart, if you know someone who needs to hear this, share this video. Subscribe to Grandparents' Tales and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next stories. Because every story I tell can save a life, can make someone realize they're not alone, can make a mother believe her daughter before it's too late, and leave me a comment with the word believe, just that word. So I know you believe the victims, that you'll be alert, that you won't ignore calls for help. Do it now. Don't wait another minute. This chain of support can save lives. Thank you for listening to me. May God bless each one of you. And remember, evil can be strong, but love always wins in the end. With love, Grandma Amanda.